It is now time for the second panel discussion and the last session of the day, which is Ask the Experts. This is an interactive session, so I encourage everyone to share your questions throughout this discussion. Our speakers are specifically here to share their take on the different workplace issues women come across in manufacturing. So they're available for you. So please take up this opportunity and put forth any challenges that you may have in the workplace, and our panelists will be happy to address you and help you out to the best of their abilities. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this panel discussion, Karen Buzinski-Wilson. With over 25 years of experience in electronics manufacturing, Karen brings a wealth of experience from roles across the ecosystem, from a large global contract electronics manufacturer to an IoT sensor startup to EV engineering, and working with accelerators to connect startups with the resources they need to succeed. Karen is passionate to support and build Canada's capability for innovation and global leadership globally, and she is currently the head of private partnerships at Venture Lab. Karen holds bachelor degrees in both economics and materials and metallurgical engineering from Queen's University, and she also has an MBA from INSEAD. Welcome, Karen. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nithya. And I must thank everyone who has presented so far, and particularly Linda and Mary. Such an engaging session. Thank you so much. And I hope this is the first of many continued conversations of so many great points that we've shared here as a community. Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure today to introduce our panel of talented, experienced women in manufacturing to share insights and learnings from their careers, as well as thoughts on how we can all make an impact going forward. I'd like to introduce our panelists. Leslie Wills is Vice President, People and Corporate Affairs at Bimbo Canada, a division of Grupo Bimbo, the world's largest baking company. A highly effective and energetic change agent and an advocate of people-first culture, Leslie puts her more than 25 years of experience to work in bringing pragmatic and sustainable people solutions in the most demanding and dynamic environments. An HR generalist with a deep understanding of the business, she partners with the organization's leaders in developing the right strategies. Welcome, Leslie.
Hi, Karen. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Janet Wardle is President and CEO of MHI Canada Aerospace. Janet, it's a tenacious and decisive executive with over 20+ years experience driving efficiency, cost improvement, and multi-million-dollar spend reductions at industry-leading international organizations. She's deeply engaged with her team and is an active and committed member of her community, serving not only on the board of directors for the Mississauga Board of Trade, also supporting various nonprofits, including the Mississauga Food Bank and the Canadian Red Cross. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you, Karen.
Stephanie Holko is Director of Project Development, Next Generation Manufacturing Canada, NGen. She has 17 years experience leading teams and projects in the steel industry. She loves connecting emerging technologies with existing manufacturing problems and believes the future of manufacturing is the adoption of new ways of working. Stephanie holds a Bachelor of Applied Science Chemical Engineering from the University of Waterloo and a Master of Business Administration specializing in the management of innovation and new technology from McMaster University. Stephanie is a licensed professional engineer in the province of Ontario. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. And I think we bring a common spirit here today. And again, building on such an incredible day. Thank you for the platform that we're bringing together here. I think we bring a common spirit here in the manufacturing and tech industry. We all come together with continuous improvements and innovations and embracing emerging technologies in order to solve problems in industry. And in doing so, there's a lot of room for diverse teams and talent. And again, that is us. So we have some questions we've received in advance. We could start with these, and then as we go, we'll add to it. We'll be receiving additional questions as we go through the chat and the Q&A. So to start off, how do we not only attract women to the industry, but also retain them in the industry? And although the question was phrased as the retain them in the industry to reach our diversity targets, overall, I think it's in order to attract and retain for rewarding careers and enabling women to become role models in the industry. So for our panel, may I start with you, Leslie? Would you like to share some thoughts on this question?
Yeah, for sure, Karen. Thank you. I just want to say as well, it's been amazing listening to the discussion so far this afternoon. And I will say I am the proud aunt of a 19-year-old niece who is a welder, who has only ever wanted to be a welder, and has just today is actually starting her a new job. So it's rather fortuitous that that we're having this conversation, but makes me think about, how do we attract women to the industry? How do we retain women? And I appreciate the characterization on the how do we reach diversity targets? I'll have perhaps a lofty opening statement, just saying, I think it's always important to start with the question, why? Why is this important? And we've heard lots and lots today about, what women bring to the organization, regardless of industry. And I think, that entirely different, not better or worse, but a different element to the business is why. And I think that's why it gets space on the table and in forums like this to have to talk about. And so thanks for the question, and thanks for acknowledging that, diversity, and in this particular case, today's focus has been on, the importance of women in the business. That's a difference maker for businesses. Right off the bat, I'll say I want to sort of refute the idea that the goal of either attraction or retention is to just reach diversity targets. Stephanie and I may be the two today that are going to spice things up a little bit and and take a bit more of an edgier approach. But I think in terms of the question, how do we attract women to the industry? I think there's so many different things. A lot of them have been talked about today, but for me, I think it starts with the premise that, education and awareness that manufacturing is an industry that's revolving around innovation, change, technology, breaking down the stigmas that it's not just all, dirty machines and labor intensive, unglamorous work that's, not conducive for those historical, roles that women have been in, where we've already talked extensively today about, women and the challenges of, raising families and lacking the confidence to advocate for themselves and having the right sponsorships. But I do think too many misconceptions exist that that need to be cleaned up. And the first way, to do that is by continuing to have discussions in forums like this. And I think, the more and more women assume senior leadership roles in operations, that in and of itself is evidence to show that the industry is shifting from being primarily male dominated to one where women can not only enter but achieve high levels of success in their career. And I am blessed in my organization that 70% of our executive team is female, including the first woman president in our global company, 77 years to lead a business unit country. So we're living sort of that reality right now. So I do think that I come from a bit of a perspective that's kind of like, we're well on our way. We are far from great. But I think the idea, of how do we do this, partnering with schools, partnering with universities, having events like this, dispelling myths. I know there's some other questions that are sitting in the queue that we'll get into a bit more discussion on about trade specifically and where partnerships can exist. But I really do think it's an awful lot about about education and letting people out there know, not just women and men, that this is an industry, or in manufacturing is an industry unto itself that just needs more and more attention. The thing that keeps me up at night is saying, what is the future of manufacturing? That scares the living daylights out of me. So when I think about, on the retention side, and how do we do that? Again, we've talked about lots of things already today, but, looking at, right from the beginning, talking about, and Steph, I'll take a stab at this and I'll let you go a little bit further. But creating an environment proactively rather than waiting to have women show up in the business and then say, I need this, I need this, I need this. And I think, building policies and programs to support, whether it's working mothers, whether it's different shift arrangements. And it's not just mothers. We've talked so often today about the need to be family centric, and, the best advocates for women in business are men who understand and have walked down those paths and realize we're not trying to create, a girl power club. This is about equity, and that's when we can very quickly go into, it's not just about, females in business. There's so much more richness to come from a more expansive focus on diversity. Couple of other thoughts, Karen, that I've got that I wanted to share. I think one of them is, I'm surrounded by, many talented and capable senior women in my business, and they often say things that really make me think. And one of my colleagues says, don't try and solve a perceived or a potential problem. If you're not sure, meet with your female associates, understand the barriers. Are they considering leaving? Don't try and solve a problem of retention if it's not a problem. But so really, I know I can't remember who it was, talked about, the power of data and information and really understanding what it says. And those are the challenges that you need to address. Don't make things up. I think there's a couple of things that I wanted to share, and then I'll be quiet, Karen. But I think how do we attract women a little more specifically than saying dispel the myth about manufacturing being, all about, kind of dirty work and hard equipment and undesirable and unglamorous environments. The women in my organization, I think, would say it's looking at the attributes of the work that they value in business. So whether that's, working on valuable projects, contributing in a meaningful way, being able to visualize the growth and progress within the company. In my organization, again, everybody in our business sees a female president, a 70% female executive team. But there's way more work that we need to do from a gender perspective deeper into the organization. Mm-hmm. And if we were to be so callous and bold as to say, gender diversity, check, which we're not, we'd have to say, well, what's next? We now need, a different perspective on saying, is it, ethnic diversity? Is it, age? Like what is it that we want? And we're not quite there yet. I think I'll end with just sharing a quick story of someone that I work with who said to me, I think it's critical that ideas such as hiring women to solely diversify the team's gender ratio need to be shot down and shot down fast. We need to ensure people feel they are valued in their team for the skills they bring, not just as a number to diversify the gender distribution amongst a team. As someone who was once a few years back called a, quote, young millennial female who would find her way in operations solely because I fit those labels, end quote. She said, I know what this feels like to be on the receiving end of such comments, and those kind of views will never help with retention. So I'll stop there and say those are, just some thoughts on how I think about that question.
Thanks, Leslie. I love how you highlighted the type of work is really an attraction of the problem solving, the really cool ability to dig in, that you're actually making something, and the type of problem solving that goes into the type of work, and attracting folks with that. I'd love to hear, I was seeing some nods, Janet, with some of the comments that were being made. Janet, by all means, I'll pass it to you next to comment further.
Thank you so much, Karen. And those comments did resonate with me. So the one on the KPI especially. So I went to school for engineering, again, was in a class where I was 20% I am the first president and CEO. The MHI stands for Mitsubishi Industries. So those that don't know, it's a Japanese company. So you can well imagine that potentially they're not as far along the spectrum as North America as far as diversity, especially female. So when I go to an executive meeting, I am definitely one of the only females that are there that's not in a supporting role. So I agree with Leslie on the KPIs, and I always worry on any KPI when you measure something, you might be allowing people to have habits that are not right. I always tell people you got to hire the right people. So our job is, how do we get those right people to apply, is how I look at it. I always said I'd never be on Instagram. I'd never be on Facebook. I'd never be on LinkedIn. But I feel like as a female leader, I need to get myself out there and say, hey, look at me, look at what we do. And manufacturing is not just shop floor, machining, welding. It's finance, it's marketing, it's branding, it's all these things that should excite people. And I think that, I always say, even my specific industry of aerospace, I always call her my little friend Greta, went out there and said, flying airplanes is a dirty industry. And it's like, oh man. So you got to get out there and send the message that we're working so hard to change, whether it's diversity. I can say honestly, hand on heart, we're 20% females, but we have 66 countries that are in our organization. And we do so much to make sure that we're inclusive and diverse, almost to the point it's part of the thread of who we are. We don't think about it. But I will tell you, we did an emerging leader program, and we had the whole organization fill out a questionnaire about, where they saw themselves, where they wanted to be. And we decided on emerging leaders. And I sat back and went, hey, what about this girl? Or what about this person? Why? And so when I went to the females and said, hey, why didn't you apply for this program? Well, you said we needed 5 things. I only had 2. And I'm like, the guy the next to you that applied only had 1. So it's that confidence, right? It's that going and reaching out. And people have said it today, and I say it to everybody all the time. It's the why. Why are they not applying? Why are girls not looking into this organ or into manufacturing? So you got to get to somebody said it, I don't know in which session, you got to get to the parents. You got to show the parents. We have so many female shop floor workers that they're here because their dads are here. And their dads are like, this is a good paying job. You should come and see. So now how do we get to other people and bring them in? We're paying our people $40 an hour plus benefits. People don't know that, right? They're going to go and go into business. My finance guys don't tell them. They make less than some of these guys on the shop floor. And they went through all this school. We offer a school. I heard somebody say, and I've already sent it to HR, we're going to offer a week's worth for just females to come in and test it out. Go to the school, test it out for a week. We already pay our students to be here for 8 weeks, but maybe if you make it more inclusive. So as far as attracting, I think that as female leaders, that's the most important thing we can do, is get out there and go to schools and universities and colleges, talk to employees and families, get to know families. I find getting to know a lot of families and saying, hey, why don't you bring your daughter in for a grade 9 day? Or why don't you look and see, get them thinking about different things. So I think it's education, and I think it's us getting out there as leaders and being excited about it. And again, remembering manufacturing is not just engineering and shop floor. You need all those other things. You need HR, you need everything. And I think we forget sometimes.
You're absolutely right. And I know my experience was the shop floor I went to was clean. It was electronics manufacturing.
We make airplanes. It has to be clean because, right, same thing. You want to make sure that everything's safe.
Absolutely. So there's so many great experiences through that. And Stephanie, I know you also bring the perspective of coming from a faculty role at a college as well. Jenna touched on some great things with regards to how we could engage the universities and the schools and colleges. Do you want to share some thoughts on what your thoughts are for attracting and retaining women into the profession?
Thank you. And I mean, fantastic comments already from my colleagues here. So to build on it, you can only do so much with girls in STEM programs, right? At a certain point, it's just not enough. And so for me, when I say, why was I attracted to manufacturing? I was attracted as a young engineer because of the impact that I could have. Even as like 1 year out of school, you could save hundreds of thousands of dollars, or you could just by paying attention and solving problems and that kind of thing in terms of impact is another piece to the puzzle of the story we can tell about why it's exciting to work in manufacturing. And with the companies that I work with, I see a lot of women founders who are in the clean tech space or in the in femtech, and so they're using the same skills, but they're solving problems that society needs solved, and that's exciting as well. So I think there's a little bit there that we could do in terms of the attraction, and then I think retention is really important. And these are people that have selected already, and they've gone through the training, whatever that is, at the college or university level or whatever it is. And then they're leaving, and we need to know why, and we need to address that. And some of the comments I think that Leslie made earlier, we need to be prepared for women to show up. We need to make sure there are change rooms and washrooms, and if you need to know what kind of particular material is required in case somebody comes in wearing hijab, you don't want them to be the person that has to figure that out. You really should be set up to bring people in and welcome them. And every time you don't do that, it's a signal. It's a signal that it's not that important, or they're an afterthought. And we need to get away from that, because I don't know if anybody's heard, but there's a war for talent right now. And we need to make our companies places where people want to work and want to stay. And that's not on the individual. The individual can be ready for opportunity. The individual can be ready to be coached and take all of the training. And if they're not met with that same kind of energy, if they put all that effort in and then they're an afterthought, that's how you lose people, I think. So we need to work on that. Sorry, please.
Yeah,
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Stephanie, like as recently as this week, I had a conversation with somebody not in my organization who was talking about it in this war for talent, and the particular site that was in need of hiring, they didn't have a female change room. And the comment was, well, we don't really need a lot of women. If we have like one or two, they can just figure somewhere else to change. And I was like, it's 2023. Like, how is this even happening?
Workwear, along with change rooms. It's the same.
Yeah. I remember, like, honest to God, without word of a lie, I remember it like it was yesterday. I used to work at Coca-Cola, and one of the it was our service technician, so the people who go out and fix vending machines and the fountain machines at restaurants and bars, and this is like circa 1996, and one of our managers had hired his first female service technician. And I remember sitting in his office, and he's trying to explain to me, like, he goes, I need to get her like some clothes, like a uniform. And he's like kind of doing this and making his hands go all funny. And he says, and I don't really know that we have anything that fits. And I'm like, you need to get her a shirt like for women because we have boobs. Like, that's, just say it. That's what we need. And that has not been part of our standard uniform purchase. So I guess we got to get off our backsides and go figure out how to have, uniforms that are sized appropriately for women.
And that's a safety issue.
100%.
You can't be tripping over things or having your sleeves drag into machinery or any of those things. And it's still an issue 30 years later, right? It's still a concern.
Yeah.
Well, and some groups are actually making some changes, not only to add washrooms or change rooms, but gender inclusive spaces. So why make two genders of washroom? Why not make washrooms that anyone could have access to and feel that there's an inclusive space for them as well? So I think that is another way to create more inclusive environments. I've always worn lab coats whenever I've been in a lab in a career, and a lab coat fits everybody, and it's a great way for everyone to feel inclusive. And I think I really liked some of the things you talked about of why you were attracted, Stephanie, to the profession. And I was thinking back to when I was attracted, and I love the idea of making stuff. And like consulting firms, we're recruiting a lot of young engineers. It's like, yeah, but why are you consulting until you've actually made something, can actually speak with some authority? And so I was drawn into manufacturing myself because I wanted that basis of knowledge. And then I just stayed because I loved it. But you also touched on a great point, Stephanie, which was not only can you make stuff, but you could also save money. And not only can you save money, you can actually create products that improve the environment or improve social and basically UN's sustainable development goals. You could actually help improve things by the products you're making. You can actually be part of the system that's making things for a better world, really. So I think a lot of it is in our attraction messaging could be, hey, come be part of the incredible opportunities ahead for us to actually make a difference and impact. So and on the retention side, I was reflecting on a few things that I remember that worked well for myself and some of my peers, of looking at horizontal opportunities of like switching from engineering into supply chain or into different roles within a company to learn different perspectives, finance, et cetera, and program management, et cetera. But also vertical opportunities, both within the same company or within an acquired company, some vertical opportunities for growth and promotion. And international opportunities or different work arrangements with working hours. And then the mentoring and the sponsoring we talked about, I think is a huge piece on the retention, as so many of the speakers had spoke earlier, not only mentoring, which is important. And I love the way that it was defined. Mentoring, it gives the perspective, sponsorship really creates the opportunities. I know for myself, I just recently looked at a photo of our company and I saw a person and I reached out to him and I said, I'm going to help you get to the front row. And because I felt, you know what, I want to pay it forward. The same way, again, Linda's trips then had such a great comment of paying it forward with mentorship and sponsorship. And I think of all the great opportunities I had in my career, and I'm now proactively doing that because I truly want to reach out and help others in the same way that I think others had reached out and helped me. And I think that's a great opportunity for the attraction and retention that I found as well. Janet, were there some other comments? I saw you nodding. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
Just all those things. I think that, we need to really help everyone, specifically women, because I think there is a confidence issue for whatever reason, for some women, that they just, again, that whole, if you need 5 things, the guy will apply if he has 1 because he's confident. He's like, who knows, maybe someone's going to apply that doesn't have any. So now I'm still ahead of the game. To have that mentality and to just, watch for those things and definitely ask the why. And on the retention, we do a lot with emerging leaders, high potentials. And again, we find that even though the ratios don't remain the same, and so we're definitely trying to figure out how to push people, not push, but highly recommend that they attend training and they do those kind of things in order to retain them. And again, we learned with COVID that people can work from home. And I think that was something that prior to now being manufacturing, you're like, you can't work from home. You got to support these guys. You got to be in the plant. There's days I kind of struggle with it, but we're definitely learning to adapt.
Fantastic.
Karen, there's one other thing, if you don't mind, that sort of dawned on me just listening to this last bit of the conversation. One of the things that our organization does, and complete transparency, it's not done, and I'm going to add the word yet, for a specific focus on operations or trades, but we have a 3-year rotational program that we call our leadership trainee program. And it's a great initiative to expose, not just women, everybody, but in our current cohort right now, we are predominantly women into operations. And when we say, a rotational program, the one role, our president, was a former leadership trainee. Our North American head of procurement was a leadership trainee. And the two of them would say the most valuable roles that they ever had in that rotational program was spending a year as a production supervisor, to know the business, understand what's going on. And that gets the exposure to the field of operations. And for a lot of the things that we've said so far today, and some of the things that, that you and Stephanie have talked about that drew you to the business, there's nothing more delightful than speaking to someone who might have been a marketing grad from the Ivy School of Business saying, oh my gosh, I'm doing my turn at my rotation as a production supervisor, and I realized like we're making stuff. You want to eat bread tomorrow morning? I know where that was made. And so that ability to connect with what people are making and doing in operations, it's changing the way some long held beliefs of some of our, young leaders are thinking about, maybe manufacturing, like operations operations in a manufacturing company, like a baking business, is of interest. And we have one leadership trainee right now who's an engineering grad, and understandably so. She's not going to let us skate on the commitment we said to help her get her PN hours, and she's pushing the envelope right now and saying, she's in a production supervisor role. And she said, I don't want to do it for a full year. I feel like I can add more value to the company if you switch me into maintenance for the last half of this rotation. And, we're going to change the universe by having people like that who continue to, to push the envelope.
Yep, absolutely.
If I can just add on retention, I think that, I had a conversation with a young lady in the female bathroom this morning, and she was one that when she started and I introduced myself, she's like, I know you, I follow you on LinkedIn. And that was my thing, like, wow, here are these young people that's how they find out about us, right? When they get a job interview, they go online and go, okay, how is it to work, right? I was at another event recently and somebody took up our Google reviews, and because I was talking about what a great place we are, and he goes, I've never seen a place that's had 5-star reviews and not one negative review. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that. But she talked to me about wanting to be, potentially wanting to be me, wanting to be that role. And I think the most important thing that we need to do is remind them we were them once. We didn't have that confidence that they have, and just remind them that it's okay. They're going to get there. Don't give up and don't go into a corner. Ask questions. I said, come see me, talk to somebody that can be a sponsor, but remind them that not only were we them once, we're still nervous when we have to get on a panel or when we have to talk in front of an all employees meeting. Those things are still always going to be there.
Absolutely. And I love that. And to build on that, I was just looking in the chat, and I think we build on exactly that theme with a couple of the questions that came in earlier. So some questions on, how do you have that confidence in your abilities, especially if someone doubts you because you're a woman, or doubts your technical skills because you're a woman, or, you may offer something and then someone else may bring it up and they get the credit for it or something. But, to the point of how do you have that confidence to convey and to get your ideas heard and have the confidence in the skills that you bring. I think a big part of it is having this experience, right? For example, the work, being on the shop floor, doing your time, if you will, getting street cred, if you will, of being on the shop floor and saying, look, I've seen, I've seen these types of defects. I've seen or I've led this process improvement, or I've designed that system, and then be able to speak to your achievements of, well, I've actually created that factory that's more cost effective than that other factory. Being able to create opportunities, and this is where I guess we as sponsors, we create the opportunities, and then those people can say, actually, you should listen to what I have to say, because here's what I've done so far, and here's what I could do for you next. And I think it's built for us as sponsors to create those opportunities for the young talent to come in, to build on that, and then if someone challenges you, you have the experiences that you can base a good rebuttal on what basis you actually have the credibility to be heard. And I think the other key thing that I found in my career, and chime in here if you found this as well. I know if we were making process improvement presentations and we'd reflect, I've done this piece of work and here's the quality improvement in parts per million improvement. People would say, great, that's wonderful. And then I said, but that's $1.2 million savings. And the management finally, realized the language was heard. And then you've got to think about what are the motivations for senior management to recognize the work that you're doing. in a way that matters to them. And I think one of the previous speakers had mentioned that of the work that you're doing, find a way to show how that aligns with some of the strategic groups, strategic initiatives as well, so that again, the work that you're doing is meaningful. You're actually impacting manufacturing, production, and things that matter. Yeah, by all means.
Hey, Karen, can I add something to that,
Please.
Karen?
Yes.
It's funny. One of my, again, one of the, very intelligent women that I have the privilege to be surrounded by at work, was telling me a story at one point, and it was on topic of this, and she was saying that, we need to work with governments to help influence school curriculums at an early age. And as she was talking about that, she said, we just need to stop telling kids that they should all be doctors and lawyers, and encourage them to, get into the trades or into operations. And she went on to describe this, this in by way of example, saying, doctors save people and lawyers keep people out of jail. And this friend of hers who had, this was the way her parents told her. And they said, and tradespeople get to build the world. The cars that you drive, the buildings we live in, and the child, it wasn't a child, I mean, they were a teenager at this point, but they said, and doesn't that, save a whole bunch of money when you do things, when you build one car, and don't tell me that the next car that was ever built was, more expensive and less good. And they were able to start piecing together the importance of economics and that language of showing where you matter.
Yeah.
So just listening to you talk made me remember that story.
I think that's a huge piece. And, recognize we have our last 5 minutes of how it matters, kind of a big picture, but also then creating the environment and culture. I wanted to touch on culture as well, on why it matters and the team that then unites in order to create these things that matter. We can all share perspective here, and we can go reverse order, Stephanie and Janet and Leslie, on culture and how culture has been a big part of providing inclusiveness for both attraction, retention, and providing that environment. Stephanie, you want to say a couple of words on culture and NGen and things that you're finding that are helping to find ways for folks to work together and feel that they have a seat at the table?
Sure. And I want to join Leslie's Super Girls Club, or the Cool Girls Club, because I think one of the ways is we can create the culture. And when we, even to refer back to some of the previous comments,
or the non-girls club, I think she said
yeah.
It's not a girls club, it's an us club, it's
everybody's
inclusive club. Yes.
But when you see, and again, it's not a girl that can say this, but if there's somebody who says an idea in a meeting and somebody takes credit for that idea, or do you know what I mean? Sometimes you say it and then the guy next to you says it and they're like, oh, what a fantastic idea, Bob. To have someone else in the room go, actually, great addition to Stephanie's earlier comment. So there's a way to call it out as you see it, and that creates culture. I think it's on us to create that culture as well. And then inclusion, if you create a culture and inclusion, it levels up for everybody.
Yep.
Nobody enjoys negative comments. Nobody enjoys things they shouldn't be saying. And maybe there was only guys in the room before, but somebody was saying something and that guy in the corner is uncomfortable with those comments, but now they don't say them at all.
Yeah. And
now maybe some of the images that are, on the wall of the elevator get painted over, and now nobody has to deal with those things. And so it really, inclusion just makes it better for everyone. And it's really hard to change my mind on that one. I really
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Janet, did you want to comment?
I think for us, what's worked the best is, one, we do, like I say, have a very diverse organization, gender, cultures, religions. And, when people come to us with, I'm uncomfortable with this, it has reduced so much over the years, I feel, because we have provided the training, and I do have a leadership team that I feel calls it out.
Yeah.
If somebody says something that's, again, we have a lot of individuals that are, believe it or not, in their 70s. So when you look at where they came from and what they grew up with, I have one individual, I always joke around, that calls me sir. So he's Korean. His English isn't very good. He calls me sir. I could take that and go, are you kidding me? I'm a girl, right? But it's how you approach those things. And I know it's not, and everybody also knows that he still doesn't understand English well enough, and making sure that they understand it's not acceptable if, a 20-year-old man calls me sir. It's because of his culture, and we need to be understanding of where these individuals came from. And a lot of these individuals, we have, people from Japan, they still struggle with a female being in charge. And I have to watch that. I don't push myself, and I know, and you have to know your audience. And I think that's the one thing the leadership team, I try to instill in them, and most of them understand, you got to know your audience. You got to be fair, you got to be understanding, but with the training that we've gone through, inclusive, diversity, harassment training, we do it every year. It's a reminder that we don't all think the same.
Yep. No,
right. And just because I got offended doesn't mean that, Stephanie's going to get offended on the same thing, but you have to know your audience and understand, how to approach people in a way that they feel that they're not attacked, where they feel that they still belong to the group, and work through those things. So I think training is a huge issue, again, because of age, culture, diversity. Everybody, has different views. So if you give training and make sure everybody's, hears the same and understands the same, I think that's helpful.
I think you're absolutely right there. I remember coming into what I think is one of the best cultures I've ever worked in, if not the best. I'm currently at Venture Lab. They've actually been recognized as having Canada's most admired corporate culture and great place to work. And coming in, we had training on all of these things and sensitivities to everything from microaggressions to various things that upon completing the training, I was like, it really was a wonderful way for all of us to say, hey, how can we all work together and meet everyone where they're at and really kind of celebrate what everyone brings and listen and hear what each are bringing. Because you're absolutely right. I think culture is such an important part, and respecting and meeting people where they're at. Leslie, as VP of People, tell us, are there some nuggets of culture that you found have really help to contribute towards some of the successes you're having?
I think Stephanie and Janet have said it best. I mean, it's we create our own environments. Education, training, vitally important in making this successful. And I guess maybe I'll add to it just with a tiny little bit of color, because I think those are sometimes the stories that people remember. One is, again, I had a female colleague share with me something that she had read, and it was about calling in. And basically it's having the courage to go to, somebody, if it's a male in this particular case, one-on-one, address things that they might have said, explain why, tie it back to your inclusion and equity diversity strategy, about how do you create that right environment, and provide examples, to that person of how the comment could be hurtful. And, with that being a flag to say, if the calling in process doesn't work, as time moves on, maybe you switch to calling out and saying, what does that mean? And because too often I think we hear people say, oh, well, I've called it out. Well, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
You call it out and then what you expect somebody else to take care of things. And so that sounds pretty lofty. And I guess maybe I'll wrap up by saying, as I reflect on, it being March of 2023, and I think about, my trajectory and my career, I started in the auto industry. So my late mother would say, that's why I know all the bad words. And, I grew up at a bargaining table with the auto workers. And so I don't know anything else. I was never told you're going to have to work harder to get where you need to be, because I just ended up, working in the auto industry. But when I moved into the CPG space, and when I worked at Coca-Cola, I was the only woman. I was the one who dealt with the union. I was the one who did all those rough and tumble things, and it felt normal to me. But I would say fewer times than more, but they still happened. I had people make, unkind comments. I had one person at one point say to me, oh, well, everybody here thinks that they're all smart now because they have to take their guidance from a skirt. And I rightfully lost my mind. And a male hourly worker, it was a delivery driver. He did one of these and turned and looked to his colleagues and he said, "Do you talk to your daughter like that?"
Exactly.
And I've never forgotten that. And that was so long ago in my career. And I think about that and all the things that Janet and Stephanie just talked about in terms of creating the right culture, creating the right environment, training. We're on the right path. And I look at those things now and go, 30 years ago, what was it? And I didn't really know any better, any different. And I now find myself in a position to embrace all the things that Janet and Stephanie said. And, that's what I want to stand for in our organization today. In creating a people first culture that, welcomes everybody and where everybody, belongs, irrespective of what makes them different and unique.
That is fantastic. And I think that really resonates with all the messaging here of all of us will stick up and stand up and sponsor each other so that we can all be inclusive and all be excellent and therefore create some great teams and achievements, especially in this great industry of manufacturing. This is incredible. I know we're at time, and I have truly engaged this, truly enjoyed this opportunity to engage this great panel, but also to listen and hear and take in all the great comments made throughout the day. So thank you so much to Stephanie, Janet, and Leslie on the panel today. Thank you so much. And I'll turn it back to Nithya to close off the session. Again, thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Nithya, what a discussion that was. What an amazing discussion.
Truly, yes, I agree. We had some excellent conversation throughout the day. And I think we've also, some of the participants have been fired up, right? We're hearing commitments about women being, taking up sponsorships and proactively engaging and taking the ownership for someone else's profession, which is awesome, Sukanya.
Absolutely. Right now, I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of our entire manufacturing group to say thank you to all our presenters and speakers today. It was such a pleasure to hear all of your perspectives on the different topics that you touched, crucial conversations that we had. And I would really like to thank Parliamentary Secretary Jenna Sudds for her support and encouraging a welcome greeting. Nithya, I would like to move on, hand it over to you.
Thank you, Sukanya. Before you all leave, I just want to remind you that please do check out the additional content that's available on demand on our event website. Don't miss the video chat with Brendan Sweeney from Trillium Network for Advanced Manufacturing, where he discusses a brief report on how women have fared in manufacturing. Listen to what Pam Lilly from MNP, Alexandra Witt from Endres and Hauser, Jessa Jennings from Salesforce, and Sonia Poirier from IPEX Group of Companies have to say about women in manufacturing. Also, watch how to transform your manufacturing data analytics with actionable insights, which has been shared by Salesforce. Once again, thank you to our amazing sponsors. The Advanced Women in Manufacturing Virtual Summit 2023 would not have been possible without you. Our gold sponsors, IPEX Group, JELD-WEN, MNP, and Salesforce. Our silver sponsor, Endres Hauser, and our bronze sponsor, Dynamic Source Manufacturing. Thank you for extending your support and joining this important conversation. For more info from our sponsors, be sure to watch for your delegate bags, virtually of course, that will be coming to your inbox.
Today, we go away with some amazing strategies and solutions that can help women advance in careers of their choice in the manufacturing industry. It is a great feeling to look back and evaluate the positive progress we have made in the last few decades. It is therefore even more important to keep up that momentum and continue this journey of embracing equity, diversity, and inclusion as a key part of the workforce culture. We look forward to seeing what's next. So please be sure to keep sharing with us the work your companies are doing in gender equity, and also do let us know what you thought about the Advanced Women in Manufacturing 2023 event in the survey that will pop up shortly after the broadcast ends. Thank you for your attention and have a wonderful rest of the day.